It's finally here. I've had this phone for less than a day. I think at the time this video was shot, before I had a chance to edit it, we're currently at like 18 hours of Xiaomi 13 Ultra ownership. I was gonna try and do an unboxing, but I really was too impatient. I ripped this thing out of its packaging. I just wanted to make sure that it arrived okay. Kind of just got straight to using it. I've already shot about 5 gig worth of photos and video samples on this phone. This is the Xiaomi 13 Ultra. This is one of my most anticipated phones of the year. I'm kind of surprised at how excited I am because the Xiaomi 12S Ultra from last year rocked my socks. This thing has incorporated itself into so many of my videos and productions, and usually I'm not that hype about a 1-year upgrade, but somehow Xiaomi has gotten me real interested in what they can do. This is gonna be a really rambling first impressions. I don't have any notes or a script or anything like that, but just that initial gut reaction on a phone that I'm personally excited about. I don't know about you, but unboxing videos are never fun when it's someone who's doing them sort of out of obligation. Like the obligatory unboxing, not that great. So oops, I just dropped my case down there. I went with green because I kind of wanted these to be, you know, brothers or cousins. These are stablemates, but I like the change in color and accent going to green metal trim with the vegan leather back. The green and gold looks good, but I'm not much of a gold copper person. Also, what just fell off my desk was a really cheap bumper case that came with the 12S Ultra. That has been replaced with a much nicer textured plastic guard for the 13 Ultra. It feels a lot more like the plastic guard that we would find on Vivos. This is my X80 Pro. This has that nice grippy plastic back. This feels a lot more camera-like than just cheap, clear plastic bumper. A major improvement, something that I really enjoyed on the Xiaomi 13 is moving to flatter sides. The more I dig into a phone to use it as a content production machine, the more the grip of the phone really matters. I'm not that guy who's like, oh, it feels really nice in the hand. I don't think that's valuable commentary when we're talking about phones and when we're reviewing phones. But when you can hold onto the phone better in a variety of orientations so that you can get the content that you want, flat sides serve a very specific practical purpose. I love them on my Sony, which I almost dropped right there, but the flat sides saved it. See, there you go, practical demonstration. The Sony feels more camera-like for how you can hold it and you can really get a good grip on it. The 13 Ultra is a lot more confidence-inspiring out in the field than the thin rail feel of the 12S Ultra in my fingers. Now, of course, the tech that we're gonna be digging into and all of the camera functionality, this is the really exciting stuff. We've got to divide phones into different categories. There is no winner phone of the year. That doesn't exist, the bestest phone. But if we drill down one layer, we can look at gaming phones and productivity phones and content creation phones. Now, this is already top of the list for me, looking at making content out in the field. This is a great collection of camera sensors. If you're telling me you want a phone more for work and productivity, I would maybe steer you away from a Xiaomi Ultra. So right now, I've got kind of like a trio. I'm gonna be doing a whole separate video on this, but the philosophies behind different camera partnerships with smartphone brands. We've got Zeiss and Vivo, we've got Leica and Xiaomi, and of course we've got like Hasselblad with Oppo and OnePlus, and all of these companies bring different experiences to consumers. To preempt that video very, very loosely, I like the consistency of the camera sensor experience on the Xiaomi. I think the companion sensors on the Oppo are probably the better options there if you really live in the ultra wide and the telephoto. And then the Vivo is gonna be the best computational platform. The V2 coprocessor bringing the absolute best HDR and low light performance. Even for the mega camera phones, I don't think we can declare an outright winner as much as say there are different experiences that are going to satisfy different consumers. But I digress. Back to the Xiaomi 13 Ultra. Very early day for me in testing, but right off the bat, I would say that the fingerprint sensor is a little improved over the in-display on the 12S Ultra. I've always loved Xiaomi power button sensors, and I kind of wish we could get that here. I really like that on the Xperia 1 Mark IV. It's just a very practical, dedicated hardware feel for opening and unlocking your phone. But there's just a little bit more of a snap. This pops open a little bit quicker, and I don't know if it's a change in haptic motor or if it's just a difference in how each phone's motor is being programmed, but there's kind of like a rapid flutter fuzz feel when you unlock the 12S Ultra, where it's just a more dedicated on the 13 Ultra. I like the 13 Ultra a little bit better there. I don't know how accurate Xiaomi's estimates are on this new display. This is a partnership with TCL. It's supposed to bring ridiculous brightness to the table, but just taking both of these phones out into the field with auto brightness set, the 13 Ultra is definitely outperforming the 12S Ultra. I have to play around a little bit more because there are a couple different screen techs out there, a couple different phones that are using different types of OLEDs. And I really want to see how this is going to compare to some of those other players. The 12S Ultra is using the fantastic Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, so this was already a performance advantage over most of the phones that launched early in 2022. The Xiaomi 13 Ultra brings us the 8 Gen 2. Now, this is still an upgrade, but this isn't as stark an upgrade as if we were comparing a phone from the beginning of 2022. Like my Vivo X80 Pro uses the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. 8 Gen 1 to 8 Gen 2 is a much bigger step than 8 Plus Gen 1 to 8 Gen 2. What I'm doing today after I finish this rambling first impressions is I'm gonna set up another one of those video recording tests, just shooting 4K 60 for some significant quantity of time. I'm thinking we could probably go up to an hour now and compare a few of these different options. I've got an 8 Plus Gen 1, I've got an 8 Gen 1, I've got a Dimensity 9200. We can line all of these phones up because one of the major claims from Xiaomi is better thermal performance and a better cooling apparatus. The 12S Ultra is a champ, and it'll keep recording video until you tell it to stop, but it often does so at the expense of frame rate and video stability. If the 13 Ultra can improve on that, that's going to be a huge upgrade, especially for folks who live in warmer climates, because it really is all about the cameras. I think it's really cool that all of the companion sensors are matched sensors now. I'm hoping that means we're going to see a little bit more consistency in the choices applied for things like JPEG processing. We're mixing all those colors. I never think it's really a huge deal when you radically change the field of view and the camera makes some different decisions on exposure and saturation and the color processing. You've changed the scene, the camera should be making some different decisions based on that change in the scene. But you still kind of want a phone to feel like it's a super zoom lens, so that it doesn't look like it's coming from 3 different cameras. It's one camera, but making different decisions based on the field of view. So matching the 3 companion sensors, I'm hoping that's going to bring an advantage. Also, that these camera sensors are noticeably larger than what we might find in a Vivo X80 Pro or in a Galaxy Note 23. I'm still expecting Samsung to kind of take a win for bright daylight telephoto super zoom performance, but in every other category, especially indoors, at night, in dimmer lighting conditions, having the larger sensor surface area, I think, is going to pull the win for Xiaomi. We will have to see, though, because the telephoto sensor on the 12S Ultra is ever so slightly larger than the telephoto sensors on the 13 Ultra. So was it better to have 2 distinct focal lengths or one focal length that maybe can perform a little bit better? Time will tell with a little more testing. And lastly, just how amazing it is to have a variable aperture back on a phone, and not just any phone, but a phone with the largest production sensor being used today. It was the saddest phone I ever had to return when Sony asked for their Xperia Pro I back. And I keep kind of side-eyeing, like maybe I just want to buy one. You can find some pretty good deals on them. They're a little older now. But now using the full size of a 1-inch sensor, we're not cropping into that sensor like the Pro I did, and we're getting a 2-stage aperture. Now this is not revolutionary, but it helps significantly in framing and just kind of reining in some of the light that this sensor can soak up. You have to be critically careful where you focus on a 1-inch sensor. With a head and shoulder portrait, you're kind of shooting at like an arm's length distance. The distance from the bridge of your nose to your eye can already be falling out of focus. So where you focus is critically important when you're using that super shallow depth of field, when you have that really wide aperture. But being able to stop down to f4, which is, it's a little bit more than two stops slower than the wide open, the f1.8. Being able to stop down gives us that little bit longer, that deeper depth of field, so that more of a face can be in focus, or two people side by side, but not at exactly the same plane of focus, they'll stay better in focus. It is really handy to have that capability. It also helps us cut light a little bit. If we're shooting video out in super bright conditions, we can use a slightly slower shutter speed so that movement is a bit more fluid. A 1-inch type sensor in bright daylight, you've got to use an insanely fast shutter. That makes 24p and 30p video look really choppy and really stuttery. The Xiaomi can help us rein that in a bit. It smooths out the look of that video. All told, that adds up to a really professional content creation platform that can then still do all of the computery things. And it's another critical computer step up over the 12S Ultra, in that this is the first Xiaomi that has video out through the USB-C port. I've already hooked it up to a monitor. I've already installed Taskbar from Braden Farmer. I've plugged it into my wearable displays and my wearable glasses. It is so handy having that feature on a phone that could genuinely use a good monitor. It's a capability that kind of makes sense the more you dig into these camera sensors. I'm gonna have so much more to say about the actual performance. There's gonna be a Patreon post as I break down all of the benchmarking and video editing and rendering and podcast rendering and mixing. All of that's gonna be going to patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. And then I am gonna be working on that philosophy video, the difference between a Sony, a Leica, a Hasselblad, or Zeiss. I think that really changes up the conversation and the expectations that someone might have when they're shopping a phone. Even when we look at what might be the bestest collection of cameras on a phone, the style and the aesthetic might not match what you want to do. When we're spending this much money, it's really important that we get that nuance right. Thanks so much for following me on this rambling editorial. I've had it for less than a day and I adore this phone. I adore these cameras. They are monster performers. I'm gonna have so much more to say about them, but more than that, you're gonna be seeing the footage from these cameras showing up in a lot of my videos and reviews. It's already starting to take steps in replacing my mirrorless cameras and some of my other phones for not just shooting my B-roll, but also getting my A-roll, like my talking content, when I'm out in the field. Stay tuned. This is gonna be a crazy conversation for photography over the course of this next year. As always, folks, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. All the support has been fantastic. If you're hitting my home site, SomeGadgetGuy.com, maybe if you're shopping a little merch, or if you're clicking on links underneath my videos in the description, or if you're joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon. That's patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list is basically the coolest collection of tech pals in the universe. And the conversations we have on the Patreon, that's kind of my safe space. So that's the group of people who really like to dig that level deeper when we want to talk about how cool this stuff can really be. They're good people. I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Mastodons. I'm reviving my Flickr account even more so now with these crazy camera phones kind of popping up. I stream my podcast on the Twitch, but a little less so these days on the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams. But I will catch you all on the next video.